See the first question. For effective border area management, discuss the steps required to be taken to deny local support to militants and also suggest ways to manage favorable perception among locals. Read the question carefully. A recent question, 2020 question. For effective border area management, discuss the steps required to be taken to deny local support to militants and also suggest ways to manage favorable perception among locals. Yeah, please take a couple of minutes. Yeah, give me the framework. Give me the framework for the 24th question. What would be the framework of the answer? So this question, you need to understand there are various parts of the question. Okay. The question starts with a statement. Okay. The statement pertains to the effective border area management. Then discuss the steps required to be taken to deny the support of militants. Okay. Yes, support of militants. And then suggest ways to manage favorable perception among locals. So indirectly, the question is agreeing that there is a lack of perception, favorable perception among the locals towards the government. Please understand the underlying statement. It is the lack of perception among locals, favorable perception towards the government. So that lack of perception, favorable perception, is also indirectly allowing these locals to support the militants. So that is one aspect. So a very good question. So how do you handle this question? So it is asking you about border area management through cutting the support to the militants and also empowering, indirectly they are saying empowering the locals. Okay. For such questions, the thumb rule we always follow, you should do that. Don't jump to answer the question. Read the question 2 or 3 times, minimum 3 times, especially regarding security, internal security, because there are various dimensions to the questions and you have to understand all the dimensions. Only then you will make a proper answer. Even if you miss any one single dimension in the mains examination, you will not be awarded full marks. So be very careful. Okay. You can simply introduce saying the importance of managing the border areas in view of the internal security of the India. And for that, there should be a multi-pronged strategy which should target the denial of local support to militants and also manage the perception amongst the local towards the administrative mechanism or administrative machinery. That should be your introduction. Then coming to the core demand of the question, that is the body of the question, you can split the answer into 2 halves, 2 side headings. One is what are the measures to be taken to deny the local support to militants, point 1, first side heading. Then ways to manage favorable perception, and then way forward or some government measures already in place, and then conclude. So this is the framework or the thinking line for this particular question. So what introduction we have discussed. So what will be the steps required to deny the local support to the militants? So basically, whenever these kind of questions come, questions on militancy, questions on Naxalism, questions on border security, insurgency, so on and so forth, the basic thing you have to do is always focus on 2 or 3 important aspects. One is the development part. We have discussed this multi-pronged approach many a time. Development right from the grassroots level. Development means empowerment. First is the development with regard to the infrastructure, development with regard to the education, and then political empowerment. More often than not, there is no political empowerment. So political empowerment, which means grassroots level democracy, and then infrastructure development, education, and involving people in the decision making. For example, if they are the scheduled areas, if they are the fifth scheduled areas, 10 states have fifth scheduled areas. You need to empower the fifth scheduled areas. If they are the sixth scheduled areas, already through constitution, they are empowered. You have to facilitate that empowerment instead of curtailing their rights. Basically, when does a grievance grow is when you are not having a particular access to development, or something is guaranteed to you but someone is trying to choke it or block it, then people will have grievances. And in that grievances, they'll go and support people who are expressing solidarity with their grievances. Hence, the important part for these kind of questions is always mention these important aspects. And if there are already any government schemes or the proposals are in line, try to mention them. Then your answer will look very, very informed. I hope I am making sense. In these questions, the demand is the presentation of an informed answer. Clear? So what are the steps required to be taken to deny the local support to militants? First thing is, you can talk about the importance of development. Importance of development in this context, how the development will help in empowering the people, having them access of better development. Then you can have proper intelligence gathering mechanisms. If some local people are helping the anti-social elements, you can definitely have, information about the anti-social activities going on. Yes, you can engage local people for information. Okay, don't write local people for against Naxalism, because that concept terribly failed. I hope you all know that Salwa Judum, okay, which the government started as a violence against the violence of Naxals, terribly failed and was condemned by the Supreme Court. So violence for violence is not a solution. Peace for violence is a solution. So think in that point of view. Okay. And then choking the funds to the militants. Okay. And the locals who are helping militants should be brought and counseled. Instead of saying that you punish them or you just kill them and all, you can say they should be counseled. Because here we are talking about Indian citizens only. These are not outsiders. Okay. So you can counsel them. Okay. And then what else you can do? You can empower them. You can empower them through grassroots level democracy. Okay. When the area grows, when the area becomes developed, the support for militants is automatically cut off. Reducing the support of non-state actors or the external state actors in this particular context of support to militants. Okay, we already discussed about the importance of having proper intelligence mechanisms. The cutting off of the funding to these militants. Okay, so all these are important aspects in denying the local support to the militants. Then what are the ways to manage favorable perception among locals? Because locals, we assume that locals are the ones who are supporting this particular militants. So what are the ways to manage favorable perception among locals? The first thing is, basically, you should bring in employment. When the youth are idle, they tend to become restive. That is, they'll become uneasy. So first bring in the employment aspect. And then education, access to higher education. Many people are school dropouts, so have proper education. Use the help of the civil society groups. Take proper NGOs and sensitize the youth. Sensitization of youth, counseling of youth. Okay, and then avoiding unnecessary policing. No need of unnecessary policing. And you can also go on and write removal of AFSPA, AFSPA in the areas which it is not required. It is also a cause of grievance. Already when the area is peaceful for say 10 or 15, 20 years, why they should be AFSPA? Remove the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from that area, and maybe it will lead to a change in perception towards the government. So removal of AFSPA areas where there is no requirement. Okay, so by all these measures, you can build up a very positive perception. Okay, and frequent visit by the grassroots leaders, local leaders, MLAs, MPs, assuring the youth, no boss, we are for you, don't worry. So all these are the examples where you can build up the very good positive perception among the youth, and then they can help you in countering the support to militancy. Okay, and then conclude by whatever we have said. Only through development and positive empowerment we can approach these kind of issues, and the need of the hour is proactive approach instead of reactive approach. Okay, Aditya, yes. Aditya, why did you raise your hand? Anything you want to discuss? Yeah, please tell me. Whose are the answer scripts we have done last time? Kaundinya. Okay. This is a new answer sheet. We have done Kaundinya, we'll do Sriram, we'll do Sumant. Remaining we'll do next class. Sumant, and we'll do Srikar. Sumant, already I've opened yours. Okay, fine. Aditya, what is your doubt? You have raised your hand. First part, second part, overlapping. What is that overlapping? I did not get you.
సార్ అది సజెస్ట్ మెజర్స్ అనేది ఫస్ట్ పార్ట్ లో కూడా స్టెప్స్ టేకెన్ టు డినై సపోర్ట్ టు లోకల్స్. సమ్ ఆప్షన్స్ సేమ్ ఉన్నాయి కదండి.
కొన్ని ఆబ్వియస్లీ రిపీట్ అవుతాయి కదా.
అంటే పైన రాసింది మళ్ళీ కింద ఎలా రాస్తాం?
లేదు, పైన రాసింది కింద రాయమని అనట్లేదు. వాట్ వీ కెన్ సే ఈజ్ వీ కెన్ emphasize. So here you can give any government schemes which are already there. Okay, like you can say the Ekalavya schools here manage favorable perception. So we are saying that the youth have to be empowered, the the development should be passed on. First దాంట్లో ఏంటంటే local support డినే అవ్వడానికి మనము we are saying the intelligence should be strong. Any person who is involved in the support to militants should be reprimanded and sensitized. Here we are talking about, there we are talking about government as a law and order part. First thing, first half of the answer is about the law and order aspect of the government. The second half of the answer is about the administrative part of the government, where government is doing certain things, but the need of the hour is to bridge that gap between government and the locals. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Kaundinya, you are there in the class, I hope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'm there.
Yeah. Okay, good introduction. Yeah, you have mentioned the government scheme. Yes, vibrant village scheme. Good. Yes, greater devolution of political power. That's what we are discussing. Promote greater financial and economic aid. Improve identification of grievance redressal system. Good. Other steps pertaining to intelligence. Yeah, we need to have strong intelligence. Yeah, this is a good point. Promotion of digital economy, because most of these militants are funded through fake currency or hawala transactions or money laundering. So if you are trying to promote digital economy, you are cutting down the access to the funds. So public perception, good news in DD. Okay, you are involving media, bringing development based reporting. Okay, include the local self-governments for transmission of communications. Yes, use of NGOs, build a counter narrative for development in social media. Okay, and then maybe you can add, because it is about militants, it is not specific to the Naxalism or anything of that sort. You can write the removal of AFSPA also. Found in here. Okay, removal of AFSPA where already certain peace is achieved. We are in some areas we are still continuing AFSPA. Okay, and that is a grievance for locals. And recently we also have the unfortunate incident in Nagaland, right? So where government itself has apologized publicly. So those are the perception creators. Such incidents create very bad perception on the government. Okay, so government should not take such incidents for ego, but they have to take a step back and they should address these issues. The conclusion can be, slightly, you can elaborate on the conclusion part. Is this your conclusion? Yes. So you can talk about the multi-pronged approach, because you have brought certain dimensions in your answer. Probably if the examiner wants to just look at your conclusion should have some gist of what was written and some way forward also. Okay. So you're writing that there has to be a certain legitimacy, and the denial of funding should be there. Along with that, you can write there can be a multi-pronged approach wherein development and the implementation of law and order should go and hand in hand. Okay, and all the stakeholders who are part of this particular issue should be involved. So collective decision should be made whenever there is some change, or whenever there is an implementation in these particular areas. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Fine. This was a slightly tougher question, and hence I spent a lot of time on this. So for such questions, the only thing is, in the exam hall, we'll not have so much time. We have spent 25 minutes on this question. Practically impossible to spend so much time in this question in exam hall. If this is a 250 word, so 15 marker, you will have 9 minutes to answer this question. Okay, 9 minutes to answer this question, and 9 minutes in first 30 or 40 seconds, you have to understand the question. Next 30-40 seconds, you have to arrive at the framework. So 1.5 minute, by 1.5 minute, you should have the content and then start writing. So the challenge is that you have to understand the question properly. You have to get the content clear and maximize the content by giving examples. Okay, only when you do that, see, if you can, everyone can answer this question in 20 minutes. Given a time, 20 minutes, everyone can answer this question. The challenge is answering this question in 9 minutes. Okay, as of now, since this exercise started recently, I am not concentrating on the time part. But then you have to do this in 9 minutes. The quality of answers you guys are writing now should come out in 9 minutes. See the second question. The China and Pakistan have entered into an agreement for development of an economic corridor. It's basically about CPEC. What threat does it pose for Indian security? Critically examined. 2014 question, still relevant. Take a couple of minutes and give me the framework.